I'm delighted to have Andrew Welsh, the Sales Director for Water Utilities at Xylem UK. Andrew, welcome to our thought leadership series, Talking on Water.
Thanks a lot. It's great to be here. It's great to be here in person as well.
And thank you for coming all the way from Scotland. We appreciate that, so thank you so much. So I'm going to start off by asking you something that I ask all of the people that I interview for the Talking on Water series. So what is the main focus of Xylem right now?
Okay, I guess our focus in the last 2 years, if I can take it, during the pandemic, has really been to support our water company customers from an operational point of view. A lot of us have spent 2 years in offices, but a lot of our service engineers have still been out on sites helping to support the operational resilience of our water industry. So that's been really important for us. It's been very challenging at times, I must admit, but we've got through it and we've managed to work very closely, collaboratively with the rest of the supply chain and the customers. In addition to that, our lockdown circumstances have really driven a need for us to look at digital transformation. Now, that is in the water industry and in how we do our business, so that's been really, really important. We've also been very busy investing in and developing our people. Our mission at Xylem is to solve water, but we know we can't do that on our own. This is a team sport, so the whole supply chain needs to get involved in that. And by investing in people, I mean that we've been investing in growing our pool of water experts so that we can really help our water company customers meet those challenges that they have. And we've also been working hard to pull all of our digital solutions into one concise offering to our customers, so they really know what we can do and how we can help them with their challenges. We do believe that all of the components to meet our most significant challenges, the ability to meet net zero, are actually here today. We have technologies, we have experience, we have the funding, and we have the regulatory drivers to really solve those challenges. It now all depends, though, on all of the stakeholders really getting together in kind of an ecosystem of collaboration so that we can really drive the solutions into the market and really solve some of the big problems big challenges we face in this country with the water industry.
You've highlighted a couple of really key things there, because digitalisation took off, obviously, as a result of the pandemic, as you said. And particularly in the water industry, one of the conversations that we were having across water companies, where they were recruiting heads of digitalisation or heads of innovation with digital skills, and that really, the sort of digitalisation really took a sort of rapid leap forward as a result of the pandemic. And hopefully then that has sort of translated across to the supply chain, I believe, in many areas. And you were saying earlier that you've kind of packaged your products and solutions together in order to kind of help that digitalisation journey that the water utilities are on. And many of the things that I hear is that we're sort of 10 years behind the oil and gas industry in terms of our digitalisation, sort of understanding the data, where the data points are, understanding sort of digital footprint of assets. Would you agree with that?
I think I would have done 2 years ago, if I'm honest. We were pushing for innovation around digital, but I think in 2 years we've actually moved a long way. I think people understand now what needs to be done. They just need a vehicle and a mechanism to actually do it. Data is everywhere. Data is in machines that are in the ground, and it's just a matter of how we harness that and get it on a platform so that the water experts I was talking about earlier can really look at the data and provide some insights. Data is only useful if it actually drives outcomes or behaviour changes, and that's the piece that we kind of need to get right now. We have the networks in place. We bring data back for billing people for the water. But do we actually use that data to inform people on how they can save water and how we can manage the network better? That's the leap that we need to make now.
You've raised an interesting point, actually, because I had a meeting recently about the 50-litre home. So there's an initiative now to create a 50-litre home so that we're reducing our consumption from 150 litres, I think, or 140 litres per person per day to 50 litres. So it is an aspiration, because obviously people have behaviours and certain things that they do, like long showers, but they're trying to reduce that time. So there's an aspiration that we can really be much more water efficient as we move along.
That I find really interesting, because in AMP8, I think as early as AMP8, we're going to have water resource issues. We have them now, where we currently source our water from, we aren't going to be able to do it. I don't think there's going to be any one solution, though. I think there's going to be various solutions, whether that be, piping water from other places, desal, reuse, it's all got to be considered. But I think fundamentally, we need to help my customer, the water company customers, change their behaviour.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, if you live in a brand new home, 50 litres is probably something you could get to. If you live in an older home, it's a bigger problem. And I don't think that's well known in the UK that, if you live in an older house, you're going to use more water. So it's how we change the behaviour around everybody to target the 50 litre home, as you say.
Absolutely. And also it starts with us. I mean, I'm at home and I'm sort of thinking about how I'm using water, and, I could do much more to reuse water in my own home and capture the rainwater and then use it for the plant. So I think it kind of starts with us, I think, in the industry, and then hopefully our families and friends seeing what we're doing, learning from us, and then hopefully that helps kind of influence other people to change their behaviours.
Absolutely. I don't think my family and friends would be concerned if I questioned them on their water use, because at the end of the day, it's education, isn't it? It's an education piece, because people, I don't think they use water just because they think it's free. They think it's cheap. I think they just don't realise what a precious resource it is in this country.
Yeah, no, you're right. And I do think we need to do much more in terms of increasing awareness on the value of water, because it's really not priced at a point where people actually maybe appreciate it as much as they should do. Absolutely. Very good point. Yes, price is the value of water is a lot higher than what people pay for. So sticking with the theme of innovation, I noticed that Xylem has produced a net zero paper on the water utilities, and I think you've cited examples in China and in other countries in the US, but it's focusing on the UK market. Obviously the water sector in the UK has committed to reaching net zero by 2030. And I noticed in the report that I believe 50% of the technologies and solutions are actually around now for them to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions, which some people might find a bit surprising, because they might think that some of the solutions aren't available and there needs to be more innovation. So I just wanted to hear a bit more about that, really.
Okay, yeah, it's a great question. We last year, 2020, we produced our 5-year sustainability vision, I would say, to 2025. And in there, it talks about all of these things that you mentioned. Globally, 4% of all energy is used by water, the water industry. And so, for the water industry to get to net zero, there's going to have to be some massive step changes. And we have provided some of those examples of where we have worked, not in the UK, but where we've worked globally, how we've helped to reduce energy and sustainability. So we can really bring some of the best case studies from around the globe where we have helped in these sustainability projects, not just energy, but energy efficiency or energy saving, but really around sustainability. But I think it's for everybody in the water industry to really get on this bus to talk about net zero by 2030. I would like to think in the water industry that the water companies would want to use supply chain, want to use partners that are absolutely, committed to the sustainability. I think it's really important for the whole supply chain to really get on the sustainability journey. We need to be looking at our fleet. We need to be looking at how local we source our products and our supply chain, and really drive down what we can in the supply chain, not just around what the water utilities use as power and etc. that affects sustainability.
I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, one of the key things that we need to be doing is working much more effectively together, water companies, supply chain, other key stakeholders. And I mean, I haven't seen organisations working as closely together as I have done over the past 2 years since the pandemic. If there's any sort of positives that we can take from the pandemic, I think people are collaborating a lot more than I've ever seen before. So I think that's really positive. And hopefully spring, this new innovation platform will help to catalyse or transform innovation in the sector. So I'm going to come on to procurement, because we've got a supply chain task force right now within British Water, and we're looking at 3 key areas which tend to constantly be a challenge to the supply chain. One of them is cyclicality, so the peaks and troughs over the 5-year of the AMP period. The other is innovation, so we've obviously got spring, the new sort of innovation platform to enable collaboration and increase the adoption of innovation in the water sector. But the other area we're looking at is procurement and terms and conditions that water companies and others use. And we've seen some inefficiencies in that area. And do you experience that? Do you have any suggestions as to how we can smooth out procurement processes so that the supply chain can work more effectively with water companies?
It's a very complex question that you ask around procurement, and it's also a very complex one to really get involved in, and it's testament to British Water and the other people in the supply chain that are really looking at this, because I do think that we can take a lot of cost out of our supply chain if we do this right. I think before I get onto this subject, it is prudent to mention that every action that happens in the water industry, whether you are successful at it or unsuccessful at it, has to be paid for, and that ultimately has to be paid for by the customer. So making the procurement process and how we purchase services, solutions and products is actually really, really important. So water companies need to create value for their customers, and the way they do that is by creating a competitive environment. But a competitive environment doesn't always create collaboration around the supply chain, because essentially it is one business buying product services from individual companies. The trends in the CapEx projects is to purchase services, products and solutions from individual companies. But the trend is also to move the risk down the supply chain. And that's something that I think we need to be very careful about, because essentially what we're doing is moving the risk to the lowest possible denominator in the supply chain. The risks should be shared around the supply chain and the customer base, and I think that is how you get better CapEx project delivery. The negotiations around these CapEx projects are complex and ultimately cost the supply chain a lot of money. If it's being done at multiple levels, and as I said at the beginning of the question, it has to be paid for somewhere. Now, I'll give you an example of a completely alternative way of doing this. During AMP, it isn't an AMP 7 example. We had a capital partner who came to us and said, "Look, Xylem, a lot of the stuff we're going to be procuring on this project is yours. It's either your product, your service, or your solutions." And what they asked us to do is they asked us to right up front agree a set of T's and C's. We knew what we were going to be supplying them, or we knew the potential of what we were going to be supplying them. They were still in a competitive situation. But what it meant is we only did it once, and we supplied 6 different items or products, solutions to that customer. But we only negotiated once. So we took 5/6 of that out. So 5/6 of that whole negotiation didn't need to be used. Now, I think the key thing about this is that we actually found a design flaw in the design of that site. And what it meant was that we were upfront looking at it, and we could provide that information to the customer. So ultimately, the project saved a lot of money. But the most important thing about this is business simplification. Yeah. Why are we so complicated? We really need to make the way we do business simpler in water UK business.
It's a brilliant example, actually, because you're given the example where you were involved right up front and able to influence, hopefully, the design aspect of that particular project. And as you said, it was much more efficient.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I feel about Ofwat's focus on efficiency. I do feel that they should be focusing away from efficiency and focus on effectiveness. Because I do feel that the focus on efficiency is leading to unintended consequences, which, as you sort of mentioned earlier, is potentially squeezing the supply chain as you get lower down the supply chain to smaller manufacturers and solution providers. So I do think that we do need to do things differently, and hopefully the questionnaire that we have out at the moment will be completed widely by lots of different organisations, and then we can get that feedback and then help to give that back to water utilities, Ofwat and other key stakeholders to kind of drive some change in the sector. So that's really great that you're able to share that example with me. One of the other things I just want to come back to is innovation, because to me that's what Xylem is about. You're about solving water problems and challenges, and you're doing that globally. So are there any particular initiatives or drives that you have at the moment, or solutions that you're working on that you want to share with us today?
Yeah, innovation is one of the key themes for AMP7 and will be for AMP8 again, as we focus on efficiency and data. It's interesting you mentioned efficiency. I would, before we get to the efficiency piece, I would more prefer we start talking about effectiveness of product or of installations. Water companies have a significant challenge. You know, they have really old infrastructure in a lot of places, and at times it's not been maintained to the original equipment manufacturer's recommendations, and therefore, how do we really know whether that product is actually effectively running the way it was designed to? And I think that's a piece that we have to look at. There is an overall equipment effectiveness model that looks at availability, performance, productivity, and quality. Now, if you take those four factors together, there's nothing in there about efficiency. It's about making these really work well together. You know, the whole pandemic has created this catalyst to adopt digital, as we discussed earlier. And I think essentially we need to use the innovation of digital solutions to ensure and prove to ourselves that our infrastructure is running effectively. And by doing that, we will actually create a lot of data. And once we are comfortable that a process is working effectively, we can use that data to move to the optimization and efficiency that we want to drive. But to me, it just doesn't seem right that we're going to try and make a possibly ineffective process more efficient. We really need to start with the effectiveness, and that's the way we get true energy savings, sustainability savings, etc.
I absolutely agree with you, and that's a really good point. And yeah, I think we do need to be thinking about effectiveness rather than efficiency. That's my personal view, and I'll continue to feed that back to what other people who will be prepared to listen. But yeah, I think and in particular, I think it's going to be particularly important for AMP8, because AMP7 has been squashed from 5 years down to 3, and everyone's manically busy. Everyone's recruiting from the same pool of people and resources and competing with other major schemes and projects such as HS2. So we really have to be as creative as we can be, as innovative as we can be, but also be realistic about the expectations in terms of what we can deliver to build resilience in the water and wastewater industry. So I think that, you know, we've got a lot of challenges, but also a lot of opportunities for the sector moving forward. I think one of the things that I'd like to now focus on is Xylem support for the 30% Club mentoring program. This is something that we started a couple of years ago because I experienced the 30% Club mentoring program when I first came into this role within British Water, and I really found it invaluable to be mentored. And then one of our colleagues suggested that we roll it out across the supply chain and offer it as a cross-company scheme. And we were delighted that Xylem sponsored that, which was fantastic. So we had our first cohort of 10 mentors and 10 mentees, and some of them actually got promotions as a result of that. So thank you so much. And now we're in our second year, and again, Xylem has continued the partnership with British Water, which we really do appreciate. So we've now got a new cohort of 10 mentors and 10 mentees, but they are not just women. These are women across underrepresented groups. So anybody from an underrepresented group could apply, because as you may be aware, we're underrepresented in women across the sector, black and minority ethnic people, although that BAMI badge has been done away with, people don't like that term, but we are underrepresented in terms of black and minority ethnic people in the sector. So it's really great to have your support. So after that long introduction, my question to you then, Andrew, is, you know, why are you guys passionate about mentoring, about bringing women in and making the sector more diverse?
Yeah, great question. We were delighted to support this programme again. It is so important to get diversity in the UK water industry. Both the mentor and the mentee from Xylem who were included in this had a great experience. And I think what helped even more is because it was during the pandemic, during lockdown, and I think it really helped to have a mentor. And to mentor somebody during that time, because it was, you know, it gave another connection, didn't it, when we were all kind of sitting in our living rooms needing those connections. So yeah, I absolutely delighted to continue supporting it. As far as the wider diversity question in the water industry, absolutely, we need to solve this in some way. You know, as many markets and industry try to attract talent into their markets, it's just so important that we have some diversity. You know, when we start building strategic plans or we're doing a transformation project in Xylem, we really look to make sure we have a diverse group of people in the room, because if you don't, you will only have the perspective from one angle.
Yeah.
You won't have it from a 360 angle, and at the end of the day, the consequence is ultimately the success of the project is going to be limited by the amount of diversity you have in the room. So we absolutely agree with it. And in Xylem, we call it out now. We were on a call the other day when we were putting together a list of people who are going to go to an exhibition and conference, and we had 4 places, and we got to the bottom of the list and there were 4 white men on it, and we threw the list away and we started again. And I think we need to do that. I think we definitely need to do that. We will not be. It's been proven time and time again in the papers that you read around this subject that growth on the bottom line of businesses is directly affected by what the diversity is in that business.
Absolutely.
So definitely we need to keep concentrating on this. And that's why we'll keep continuing to support your programme.
Brilliant. And it's great to hear that you're actually calling it out and doing something about it, rather than just thinking, oh, well, maybe somebody else didn't put their name forward or somebody else wasn't suggested, but you thought, no, let's start again. I mean, one of the things that's constantly talked about is the ageing workforce in the water sector, and that we're going to lose, I think, 50% potentially of the workforce in the next, I don't know, maybe by 2030. And so we really do need to start attracting talent and retaining talent right now. And especially in terms of data scientists and people like that, we need to try and make the sector attractive to other people. I mean, it is to us, but we need to be able to get better at promoting the sector to people outside of the industry, and continuing to schools and colleges and universities to get those people in and to stay in the industry and work within it. So this is the Mission Include programme is just part of that journey. So it's great.
I think that's I can remember being at one of the winter receptions at British Water Ireland, one on the pre-meet, and we were discussing this. And then we thought one of the biggest barriers were the fact that we don't innovate well enough. And to get people to come to our sector, we really, especially in the data world and the more decision intelligence digital solution world, if we're going to attract people like that, there's got to be innovation there as well. So yeah, I completely agree.
That's a really interesting point, actually, because I think if people see the sector as dynamic, fast moving, really interesting, fascinating, where you can learn lots of different skills. I think, you're right, it will be much more attractive. But if it's a sector that's seen as not innovating fast enough, or it takes years, the same things are done all the time, then you're right, it's not going to be attractive. So I think one of the things that I'm hoping Spring will do is, as a platform, it's going to start filling up with case studies of innovative solutions and projects that people are working on, not only in the UK but overseas, and then hopefully that will help to make the sector more attractive. And there is also a new website called Make Water Famous, actually, where somebody started this website to put out positive stories about the water sector. So hopefully that will attract people into the industry as well.
Indeed, hopefully it will. I mean, for those of us who've worked in the industry all of our life, we do it because we love it and we want to we know we've got challenges and we want to be part of the solving of those challenges. But I think you're right. We need to get much more younger talent in and really show ourselves as an innovative market. As a global water technology solution provider, we do see some obstacles in the UK that we don't see in other countries in the water market. One of them is frameworks. Frameworks drive competition. They drive cost efficiencies. They aren't always a great vehicle for driving innovation, because innovation is very often across many frameworks. So I think we have to have an eye on that and make sure we're considering it. The other thing is commercial models. In a lot of other countries, there's a move from capex to opex, and to get really those kind of those commercial models that pay on efficiency, that pay on pumped water, that type of thing. So there are other models around that could be used. Now we are seeing them to start to be discussed in the UK, which is great to see. We'll just have to see how that develops. The other part is the ease of adoption. I'm involved in one of the British Water Task Forces, and we sit in our meetings and we sit with brilliant entrepreneurs who have designed stuff in the UK, and then they now spend most of the time outside of the UK. So really, we've got some great people innovating in the UK, and to really attract, I think this is really linked to attracting new talent that don't come from the water industry. This whole, how do we accelerate innovation? How do we accelerate the adoption of innovation, and therefore show that group of people we want to attract that really we are a fast-moving market, and one that they want to work for. I think 2 years ago I sat at an innovation conference, and there was a lot of people in the supply chain saying that we don't innovate in our UK water market. But I really think, Offshore Innovation Fund, Spring, stuff our utilities doing, we are supporting that. At Xylem, we have what we call Xylem Innovation Labs, which is kind of split into two areas. It's like an incubation area and then an acceleration area. So regardless of where a new company is on the kind of their growth roadmap, there are vehicles in the UK that can really take that idea and either make it better or accelerate it. So it's great to see, 2 years ago, none of these existed. So I'm positive, I have a positive optimism around innovation in the UK water market.
That's really good to hear. So I want to ask you a bit more about your Xylem Labs then. So how do supply chain companies or startups or innovators get to potentially work with Xylem on those? How does it tend to work?
You can just contact us. I mean, we are always on the lookout. We have it is a whole group of people. It's that are on the lookout for companies that have these type of products and solutions. Okay, we do look in various specific areas for areas that we know the water market is lacking at the moment. But really, anybody can contact us, and we'll be considered through our Xylem Innovation Labs.
Okay, so actually then companies can actually run trials at your labs and get feedback and things like that. So
we're really lucky to have a research and development facility in Cambridge, it's brought a whole new dynamic to Xylem. Our water experts that I mentioned earlier are out talking to our customers, and when they come across a challenge or a different view of a challenge, somebody in a water company is just looking at that challenge slightly differently, and it sparks our interest, then we're really lucky to have a group of people we can go and discuss that with, and we can come up with some optioneering around something we can do, and it's just great to have that facility in Cambridge that we have now.
That's brilliant. So hopefully maybe one day we could organise a site visit potentially?
Definitely. They are really open to that. They want to hear firsthand from our customers. They want to hear firsthand from other companies that are related to the UK water market, just because it helps with their view of what is going on out there and what real challenges we've got to solve.
Brilliant. So I'm going to get back to you on that, and hopefully fix a date in the near future. So I'm going to bring this interview to a close then, and I'm going to ask all of the people that I interview on the Talking and Water series, what does utopia look like to you? Thank
you, Lila. That's a really interesting question to answer. I think I'll answer in two ways. From a market perspective, utopia would be that we no longer we can go back 2 years and have the type of supply chain issues we had 2 years ago that we could see what was coming down the road, and they were not volatile. And the market is volatile at the moment. So I would love to see an end to that, because again, there's a lot of time being spent and a lot of cost being spent on managing that at the moment. And that's not just Xylem, that's everybody in the supply chain. But as far as Xylem is concerned, our mission is to solve water. Our vision is to create a future where global water issues don't exist. And I'm really excited to work for a business that wants to have that grand vision. At Xylem, we believe we have a fairly unique position in the market. We have a comprehensive portfolio of technologies. We have a deep application expertise, and we have been developing that in the last 2 years. And we have a significant install base. I think this gives us a real vantage point to look at these global challenges. So, utopia for me is being able to have these conversations with water company clients, being able to take them up to our research facility in Cambridge, and really, let's solve some of these issues that we have, and they're not small, and they're not easy to solve. But utopia is being on the journey, and hopefully in 10 years' time having some of these really big challenges as a thing of the past, and doing it with a net zero mind.
That's great. Thank you so much for sharing what utopia looks like for you. So I'm delighted that you were able to join me today, Andrew, and thank you, as I said, for coming all this way. It's been really good to hear your insights on the water industry and the challenges that we have to face, hopefully collectively, and hopefully we'll be much more effective rather than a focus on efficiency moving forward. So thank you so much, Andrew. It's been great to interview you today.
Thank you. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.